The first week of PQs is in the books. A couple PQs across the pond in Europe, as well as another giant community run event over in Spain. 82 people, 84 people. We also had Adepticon here in the United States. And tonight we're going to break down the meta, talk about some of the best performing lists, some winners, some losers. And then after that, we're going to predict the meta moving forward. I'm Jordan from the Colorado Cantina crew, joined tonight by my teammates Kyle and Sharkey. But just like last week, we have a special guest who is helping out with an event. They did a stream over on Blue Milk Gaming, and Alex also competed this weekend. Alex Krez, welcome back to the program. You saw that Mickey broke the record here for return guest. He said, I can't, I'm jealous, I need to come back. So welcome on in, good to have you back.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. Just got the hardware to show off from the Adepticon tournament, but it has been a great week, and I'm excited to talk some more Star Wars. Never get enough.
Yeah, awesome. So honestly, myself and Sharkey and Kyle, we kind of forgot that PQs were happening in Europe. We were focusing in on the one community event, the giant event in Spain, like 82 people or 84 people. We'll find out which one in a second. And then also Adepticon. But when we were logging into our friends over at Swoo Base, we found that there's like 5 more events to talk about. So a lot of good data to go through. Some deck lists are kind of cementing a little bit deeper than we saw last week at the Cantina Clash. And in general, things are underway. So last week we talked about a lot of Lando domination and how the meta would react. One of the questions would be like, hey, how much upgrade hate did we see? So we'll find out about that as we dive into some lists. And in general, it's just a kickoff to another great season of SWU. I mean, Sharky, right now we're at a spot where the meta is pretty diverse. There's a lot of different types of gameplay. And as someone who kind of has an eclectic taste, that must feel great for you right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In a lot of the tournaments that we're looking at, the most represented deck is in the 9-ish% range, which is not a lot compared to some of the past metas that we have seen. And to continue on with the trend that is interesting like that, the win rates for a lot of the guys who end up winning overall, or the decks that end up winning overall, aren't even breaking 70. So you're looking at what seems to be a really wide open meta at this point, which tends to, in my at least estimation at the moment, we'll see if that bears fruit going forward, but like my guess is that means that a lot more player skill is going involved into playing the deck as opposed to just what leader did you play this week.
Yeah, and not just playing the deck, right, Kyle, but building the deck, figuring out what type of deck you want to play, what you need to prepare for. I mean, we've been talking about Lando a lot. I've been playing Lando a lot, and even just the simple deck construction conversation between vigilance, heroism, cunning, am I playing Colossus, splash, 30? It's like every time you look at a deck now, you at least have to ask yourself, like, what am I doing?
Yeah, we say that there's a lot of deck diversity, but I think the meta is starting to coalesce a little bit.
Okay.
We've got like a good top 4, top 5 decks that are being commonly the ones that you're going to see hit your top 8s, that sort of thing. I think where the diversity comes, to your point, is how do you build them? Right, we're still seeing splash bases coming out of nowhere. We'll talk about a deck here later. Vader showing a splash base. Other decks, how do you build them? Like you said with the Lando deck. So I think the diversity comes in those meta leaders, but I didn't see a lot of surprising leaders come out this week. Right?
Yeah.
It was ones that we kind of know are going to be there, but there was diversity in how they were built. I'm hoping as the PQ season starts to progress here, we see more surprise leaders pop up.
Yeah. So Alex, we've been playing a lot of Obi this season. I've been experimenting a little bit elsewhere, probably more than you so far, but right now we have Obi in this general meta. And I'm pretty sure if you go to Sweet Base, this is including all the PQs that happened, the Adepticon lists that are uploaded, as well as the community event at Empire Games, the Brawl in Spain. So we see Luke as the most played, Obi as the second most played, Darth Vader as the third, Boba Yellow as the fourth, and then Lando behind that at fifth. Does anything kind of surprise you there or stand out?
Not in particular. Maybe just Lando being so low. But yeah, frankly, I attribute that to being maybe the price of some of the cards right now. And the fact that he did pop up just pretty recently is this top deck that I think it is the best deck right now personally. We'll obviously talk more about that. But most people already know those liberties are not cheap right now.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's still $40 for base liberties, but which I even think is a great thing for the game to finally have cards worth something, like cracking packs. Like I got a Liberty out of my box from Adepticon. I was like actually really excited to pull this legendary, which is something I haven't felt in this game, to be frank, for a little while. So that's something I think is a little surprising. I think we're going to see the Lando meta share go up and Obi-Wan go down. If you follow my content, you know I love Obi-Wan, but I don't think he is the second best deck as it has, in line with the second most played. So, and the data shows that, right, with the conversion rate for Obi-Wan. So
yeah. So Kyle, as we look at this data, the getting cards thing for Lando is a really fair point, because liberties really are hard to get and expensive. As someone who was like hunting for strangers for a little while, right? We just haven't seen each other since we opened packs on release weekend. But like, when you look at this, the thing that stands out to me the most is that Boba is so highly represented between Lake Country and Yellow. You've played Yellow a little bit. I've played Yellow a little bit. I know, Alex, you've tested against Lake Country a bunch. Should we count that as one as we're factoring in and preparing for Boba? I mean, obviously we'll dive into the top 8, which is a lot more important than the overall, in my opinion, and our opinion here on the channel. But that if we add that together, that's 19% Boba. That's right behind Obi-Wan.
Yeah, if you click that next button there, top 8s, and you see the conversions, Boba's holding up very, very strong, right? Not only is it well represented, but it's converting very well. To Alex's point, though, when you look at Obi-Wan, it was the second most played. You got to go all the way down to 14th if you want to find it again on that pie chart. So not converting very well. I'll answer your question, though, directly about counting the Boba Lake Country versus, say, Yellow. I think they do play very differently. There are things specifically in Yellow you have to worry about, and really it's the event package.
Yeah.
It's the tap downs that are coming, right? It's the hold for questioning, bounce, that sort of thing that you just don't have to worry about as much in Lake Country. Lake Country seems to be more on the, we're on the hard race game, whereas Yellow is going to interact a little bit more. So you need to understand the differences and how that game's going to play out if you're playing against either one. I'd separate the two.
Yeah. So Sharkey, going back to when you were playing CAD Lake Country, it was kind of the inverse, right? Because the main card you were playing in the red package was Tarkin Town, right?
Yep.
In Boba, just about everything that's the core is red. The yellow, the event package is great. You have some different units that you could play up and down the curve, whatever. But isn't that kind of interesting to see how the core there is just pulled away, and it's kind of the inverse here, as Cunning has just gotten very, very specific things that now make the color a little bit more interactive. Like, you had the bounce, but now you have exhaust plus discard. You have interrogation droid plus hold for questioning. It all kind of stacks up together.
Yeah. It's interesting to see that reverse there. I mean, Boba as a leader in general, just kind of ask the question, how well do you count? And can you stop me from throwing enough numbers at you to just win the game? I think the yellow one is there to answer, or not really answer, but like try to make the game plan a little more resilient. Red just hits you over the face with a hammer and says, deal with it.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to see. I don't think the styles are super different, but there is enough variation that the yellow one, you should probably be ready for at least a couple of tricks, whereas red just says, stop me from hitting you.
Yeah, I mean,
why are you letting me hit you?
The core, obviously, is whenever you see a Boba, you're thinking, how do I not let Topple defeat me in a second?
Yep.
How do I play around Cinta, Devastator, stuff like that? But Alex, when you see Boba Lake Country converting this well, in theory, the second best converting deck of the weekend, what leads it to that spot versus yellow?
Yeah, I mean, 4 HP is just a lot, right? We've seen it now for a year with the Data Vault, how 3 HP, how massive that has been with our Data Vault migration we had. I think when Data Vault came out, no one was jumping on it right away, right? And it took a little bit of time for Data Vault to really coalesce as this like best space for green. And I have to shout out the Thrawn's Pawns, the YouTube channel. They had the deck tech for Boba Lake Country, and my teammate Carlos, of course, who is the Lake Country pioneer, to call him, so to speak. And it's cool to see this deck not be a meme. It's still a meme, but it's like actually a good deck, and I love that because I think it's honestly what the deck needed to win some of these races, because in my testing against it, I get him to 32, 31 a lot of the time and then lose by one action. So that 34 is massive. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, compare that to 27 or 25 with Obi Virtue's Temple, it gets even bigger and bigger, right? It's crazy sometimes when you're playing that Colossus deck, and like 35 is just such an uphill climb for some of these definitely more fragile aggro piles. Boba is not necessarily in that area, but when you look at it, 5 top 8s, 1 win, you know, just very good stuff overall.
I think there's another interesting stat you should probably look at that
And what's
might
that?
indicate we might see more of it, is when you look at the matchups. It actually has a winning record against Luke Skywalker. So
Ooh.
that isn't common, and I expect if that continues to be the case, that you look at, yeah, 1-1 down. There you go. That one. Not a lot of data, but if that data trend continues, I think you're going to start to see a lot more Boba Lake Country.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I'm preparing for a PQ next week. I was talking to Paul Sertost a lot, one of our teammates, the highest ranked Luke player in the world, we could call him. He had the best Luke finish at Galactics. We make fun of him enough on the program that we should give him a compliment, right? And he was like, yeah, you shouldn't take Boba. Like, Boba is going to get eaten up by Luke. And I've been playing mostly yellow, so you see the numbers there a little bit. Obviously, these are small sample size overall, but 2 and 3. And, you know, I think the Lake Country is interesting in that conversation, Kyle, because then you're like, oh, yeah, you have more health, but so do I. And just because I don't have 34, like 33 is still pretty good. But then wait, I get all these other cards too, and I get these really defensive units in space, and I could ping, and I could do this, and I could do that, and it's just a little bit more of a complete game plan.
Yeah, you know, I would call that one out as more, in my gut says that's an anomaly, right? Luke is kind of the kill everything in space king. At least he has been in my view, especially the yellow version. So if you're looking to fight in space, I think I want to be on the Luke side. I think we just don't have enough data to justify that one yet. I want to see it played out. I want to see 2 or 3 more weeks at PQs. But if it does continue, I'll raise my eyebrows and say, wow, okay, maybe Boba is the space king. And it adds a little more credence to playing that deck more.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the data is what it is. We could only look at what we have in front of us. And one of the lists we do have in front of us from the biggest event of the weekend, the Brawl, we've translated that word, Rieta, to Brawl. And this is in Spain. And this was the winning Luke deck. One thing that this deck isn't running 3 of that really I've been seeing tons of in this past week online is the Orbiting K-Wing, right? I think that we saw that being played in the McClunky event as well as in the Nexus event in London. And now it's just providing such a varied threat in space, because a lot of people's answers, like, Alex, you're playing Obi-Wan. Oh, I'll just play Ghost and upgrade it. You know, if you're playing Lando, oh, I'll slam Tantive and it'll buy me a turn, et cetera, et cetera. But with the Saboteur, they are really, really strong.
Yeah, and that's something I learned in my testing a couple days ago, and I switched to Retaliation, my sideboard, over the Graceful Purgle. Sad to cut the Purgle. I wanted to run that card, but the guy called out also that has a 3 Cafisto Aether Sprite, right? So that's 5 total Saboteur ships for Luke Skywalker.
The Aether Sprite what caught my eye there.
Well, the Aether Sprite was kind of always standard, right? And now it's the K-Wing in addition, where it's just more and more and more, right?
Or Luke Yellow, who's got the 4/5 Saboteur ship for 4. That card is also even better. So, but yeah.
Luke in a very, very good spot.
I would say what sticks out to me about this Luke with the way it's built, you know, mentioning that card not being there, this one looks like it's built for the space battle, right? You're main decking the Jedi Starfighter, you've got the ambushes, you know, you've got the ping 1 to each space unit, B-wing there, and the blue wing. So it's a lot of I'm gonna fight in space. I'm gonna get those trades and wins in space, right? So it seems to me like this deck would be well positioned to take on, say, a Boba or a Vader pilot, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and what is this card in the side here? I'm like trying to zoom in.
That's the 6 cost. I know that card because I lost to it in a match in my testing. The 6 cost capture card. I believe it's like a non-leader unit. Captures any number of units with those HP, like A7 or 8 or less.
Okay,
like the
that
CAD.
was from Secrets, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I got blown up by that in a game because they captured my Ghost, and then I lost because of that. So I like that tech actually a lot.
Yeah, the tech is really
well. That
cool.
one makes sense on Luke too, right? Luke is just so hard to defeat. He's going to have a ton of HP when he flips onto a ship, so he's going to capture a whole bunch of stuff and then say, "What are you going to do about this?" You know.
So all the things that you were going to be forced to use to trade into Luke to kill him eventually, because you can't just do upgrade removal. Now they're captured. You have to rebuild the board. By the time that gets finished, you've lost the game probably. Especially if it's on a Saboteur, because then Sentinel doesn't buy you anytime, right? So really interesting there. But I think one thing that's standing out to me about Luke more and more as the weeks go on is that not only is he in the best color for upgrade hate, he's also in a great color for credit hate, where Arvel just becomes like a natural include, an easy include in the side. And I think red is in an enviable position from that perspective, Sharky.
I agree with that. I mean, the other thing to think about is that green is also really good for things like the Sentinels or good the ground interaction with their superiority. So like these two colors, I still think will be the dominant Luke pairing, though it is interesting watching the yellow ones start to pop up.
Yeah. So just while we're here, let's talk about the runner up here in this Spanish event. This is the Obi-Wan Virgin's Temple list. Kind of standard with a little bit of spice brought in the sideboard with the Purgles. On Amidala, which is something that I think Alex and I tested a lot early on in the set. But Alex, since you've been playing Obi so much, let's just dive in from your perspective.
Yeah, this looks a lot like my list I had a little while ago, because Amidala is a card that I thought was great at first, but in my testing, I grew to not like her as much just because of the fact that you can lose the Force. And with Obi-Wan, you have to really be careful playing any 3 health units. And the only one in my deck is Sabine's Masterpiece, which is I think it's just too good not to include. That's actually not in this list, so I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
And I think it's, at this point, the Obi-Wan is a very consistent deck, but I think we're seeing that almost the pilot matters more than the deck construction. I'll shout out myself, also doing well with it, but I think it's just, you really need to know the lines and the matchups. I think the biggest thing I would say with Obi-Wan, to not play the deck, and to not to discourage people from playing my favorite deck, but your margin of error can be very slim, because I'll have like one tiny mistake where I lose the Force, I never get it back, and I can't play Yoda, and I lose because of that. So I still love the deck. I'm still playing it, and obviously I didn't go back and watch see how it did in the finals against Luke, but I still like the list. It looks good. It's got the Purgles, like I said, like I was trying out. I need to try those again, and that's all. I think those were my main initial thoughts about this list.
So go ahead, Kyle. But I think the main thing I just want to point out real quick is that I think instead of the Masterpiece, he's running a Tree Remembers main, which has been a side card for most lists I've seen.
Yeah. What I was going to ask about is, I think right when this set came out, this was the first deck I built too. I was bouncing ideas off of you, going back and forth with adjustments, that sort of thing. I have moved away from it, but I am coming back to Obi-Wan. Except for I'm not doing Virgin's Temple. I've decided I like the regular Force version better. And there's a couple things I do like about it. So I was curious if it's something you've tried out. First one is Machine Gun Yoda. When you can trigger Yoda multiple times, it just wins games. Another thing I really enjoy is the Daughter, right? Against some of these space decks, especially like a Boba, when I can just trigger the Daughter over and over again and get lots and lots of healing, it has been very effective for me. I just like being able to get the Force multiple times in a turn for several reasons. Of course, I lose the broken turn 1 Counselor, which I saw on stream you got a few times. It's very good.
Good things about both sides, right? Like, clearly.
Yeah.
In my view, I'm starting to decide, are all the benefits of being able to get the Force multiple times per turn outweighing the potential broken turn 1 I can have there?
I actually think the bigger benefit of the console, I think the more consistent benefit I get is actually like the free experience points I get to give out. Many, many times my opponent will claim I get to give an XP and then get the Force back immediately. Whereas with 28, you might have to think about, can I give this XP out? Do I need to hold it for a Shatter Point next turn? Do I need to hold it for first action, a 10, or, there's a little more thinking there, whereas, you just get that instant, I just get to give out XP, you don't even think about it, I just get the Force back. So that's, a big benefit that people don't really talk about as much. The Consular is, the low-hanging fruit of,
sure,
yes, the Consular. But I do think, the other thing, I look at this list for another minute, I think the biggest thing I'm curious about is the lack of healing. Because in my testing, as I started developing my list, it's just more and more and more healing as I've gone on. Because I have the 3 Itinerant Warriors, not 2 as in this list. I've got 2 Owen Lars, 2 Yoda Saber, the 3 Yodas. So the 25 health base in my list is deceiving. I think I heal an average of 5 to 10 a game, without having anything too crazy going on. So, but this deck does have more removal than my list. I have the 2 Shatter and 2 Protect the Pod, where this has got, was that 5, 9 removal events. So it's just interesting take. I'm gonna have to try this out a little bit, and that's why I love this game. In any card game, right? There's no one best list. There's no one size fits all. So it's interesting to see, what each player comes up with. So obviously a great result. It's hard to argue with results, right? End of the day. So it's got second place out of 80 players. So that's great. Hats off to the player.
So to your point though, Kyle, I think as the meta evolves, one of the good things about that diversity between non-diverse decks sometimes is that like if you're prepared to play Virgin's Temple, switching to 28 probably is pretty easy, right? And I think right now there's a lot of credence involved in checking that out, because a lot of the matchups have changed what you thought you might be working on a couple weeks ago. Like a couple weeks ago, your biggest threat might have been Jin, it might have been Talzin, it might have been X, it might have been Y, it might have been Luke, and this probably still is Luke in a lot of ways, right? But as we look at Obi-Wan's matchup spread here, like it wasn't good. Just like full stop. And it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good at the Nexus event. It hasn't been good at the Cantina Clash. Like at a certain point, like sure, we could make specific X or Y examples, but at the end of the day, it's still a small sample size.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, one of the things I found interesting about this particular data set, though, is you look at Obi-Wan versus both Luke and Vader, and it's a very different story than any of the Boba decks. Like, he's won one game against Boba out of 10 and has been roughly 50-50 with Luke and Vader. And I don't know what the difference is. That's actually a really interesting thing that jumped out to me when we were just talking about this. So since we're on this page, hey,
Yeah. I mean,
that's an interesting one to me.
Speaking from the perspective of someone who's played a lot of Boba and a lot of Obi, it could be really tough. You only have 25 HP, and if they get the right line, like let's not even say like the chalk topple line, because obviously that's awesome, but like if they get even like the crazy indirect damage line where you're starting like TIE Bomber into, you know, Guerrilla Soldier or something, or BT into something, and all of a sudden you're at 8 damage on base by resource 3, and then you just keep pushing, and by the time you realize it, you're at 22 damage, right, Alex?
Yes, and I think, you know, you said it's a small sample size, but I think we have enough data, like I said at the beginning of the pod, that to say that Obi-Wan is not this top meta deck.
Sure.
I as an Obi-Wan diehard now as my new main deck, I do think it is a tier 2 deck. I don't think it's this tier 1 deck that so I think there is that. We're gonna see probably the data and the play rate, I think, start to align with the actual power of the deck. I think we're gonna see the play rate go down because, you know, at the beginning of the preview season, it was this you know, top deck that everyone was kind of spooked about, and it was, oh, it's so good with Consular. But I think we're seeing now that it's just not this top deck, and we'll probably see some players move off of it. Not myself. I'm gonna stick with it is the plan. But but actually, as a Hobby player, I don't mind that, because that means people are gonna take out their Consular sideboard hate, right? So we'll see how it evolves. I'm really excited to see where things go. But I'll say, with the thing about this meta that occurred to me this week is that I never thought I'd see the day where I missed Rivals Fall. I always hated that card. I never liked running it in my blue decks, and now I'm like, oh my goodness, what would I do for a Rivals Fall against these Lukes and Bobas and Vaders, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see, you know, how you know, like I said, how Obi-Wan or other decks evolves to work on the space matchups. Like I said, I'm trying Retaliation. You know, other blue decks also have Hyperspace Disaster. But yeah, I think Obi-Wan is just that tier 2 deck that is going to still be popular because it's a popular character and a fun deck to play. So
yeah,
I'm curious to see how it evolves though the next couple of weeks.
So Sharky, to go back to your question about the Bobas versus the Lukes and Vaders there, I just think they present a lot of different threats that are harder or easier to deal with. Like, Blue Leader can be very effective versus Vader decks, where it's slightly less effective versus Luke decks because all of a sudden you're killing something and then getting pinged, right? The Boba Lake country of it all is you have 9 more HP versus another very, very strong and faster aggro deck. Boba Yellow, right, is very similar in that sense. And then I think Luke with a really good pilot is just really challenging because there's so many Sentinels or so many Saboteurs to get through your Sentinels, and they're pinging you on the ground. They do a really good job at low-key keeping you off the Force with those pings as well, and they could just do some directed stuff that these other space decks can't, I think.
Yeah, this is just drawing a line a little bit to the point we were making a little bit earlier, where if the trends continue the way they are, where Boba is beating up on the 2 most played decks, I could see a world where Boba continues to grow and those 2 start to fall off a little bit.
Yeah.
That was the only point I was trying to make with that.
Totally.
But it's also good to expand on why Boba's doing so well into those particular decks.
Yeah. So obviously we see Boba as the most top 8s with Luke behind him, Jin there right afterwards. So if we can, that's with Boba combined as well, with Lake Country and that. But Kyle, in the past couple weeks, you've been saying a lot about how you think that Jin's on the way out, how, you know, Vel's just better, and it probably is, it might be, but it doesn't reflect that this week, at least.
I still think that's true. I think that's just that people are catching up with getting practice time in with Vel, playing Vel, and then kind of seeing what the difference is. You know, as I was listening to Alex there talk about Obi-Wan and Virgin Temple being one of the early boogeymen, and then its meta share, you know, coming down to catch up with its actual place in the meta. Jin, I think, is the same thing. It's just it has gone faster in that cycle, right? Jin was one of the boogeyman decks right away, and its play rate has come way down, at least from what I can tell, you know, playing and running into it. And I think Vel will continue to creep up until it eventually just overtakes Jin. I think that, you know, those two decks are really doing the same thing in many ways, except for with Jin, a lot of the time you're forced to play behind curve if you want to be able to draw. With Vel, you don't, and in fact, you can buff your units to get ahead. Right. So I still think, and I'm not going to, we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks. We're going to talk about meta predictions, but a prediction I would lay down now is that Vel will overtake Jin in meta share, play rate, and conversion rate.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and let us know in the comments if you are still holding on to Jin. I want Jin to be a thing. I like Vel a lot too, but I would like Jin to be a thing.
Yeah,
so
I'll call myself out really quick for Jin. I gotta claim I made some clickbait stream a couple weeks ago where I said this deck's gonna be banned. I'm playing Jin today, and I went like 50% win rate on random Q care best. Nice. So that was like a moment of like, okay, yeah, Jin is maybe not my deck, and just maybe not as good as maybe others thought. So yeah. Anyway.
So just one quick correction as I'm scrolling through this a little bit. As I went over the champions tab, I noticed there was only 4. So that means that this data set is just reflective of the PQs and not inclusive of the biggest event of the weekend. Right. So we'll go through these real quick and then we'll hop over there just to make sure we get everything straightened out. So Yularen is a nice PQ winner. We have Tobias Beckett, we have Chewbacca, and we have Boba Lake Country. Kyle, I know you've been playing a lot of Yularen. We played against each other in one of our little in-house events last week or this week, right? A couple days ago. So dive in. What are your thoughts on the list?
Yeah, so we talked about this last week, and you know, I told you I bought a showcase. I've been playing this deck a lot, and different versions. As we talk about deck evolution, even this deck for me has evolved multiple times in just a couple of weeks. We started out with the hard droid package. We're going to try to play L3.
Yep.
I think we discovered pretty quickly L3 is no good, and then we said, well, what if we don't do droids? So we did the droidless version. But now we're going to splash base, and I think that makes this deck even more powerful. You know, with Yularen, I'm out to race you anyway, so I don't mind being down 3 HP because this game's going to be over quick. The evolution that I'm getting here is the IG-88s and the Pig. The Pig just very good all the time, but IG-88 specifically has been really good, and it does a couple of things, right? It's very hard to remove, so it's going to let you get that double attack most of the time without going away, but it's a 6 attack, and I'm seeing a lot of Landos out there. And guess what number you need to kill a Lando at Sentinel? I need a 6. Right, so I play him on 4, you play Lando on 5. I can run IG into Lando and attack with my second unit. So very powerful cards. So I've really been enjoying this deck. I continue to enjoy it. I'm glad that there is just a hard aggro deck that's viable in the meta. And of course, I've been talking it up within the team. So to see it get a peak win made me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Italy, so they're always coming up with interesting decks over there for sure. The thing that I had a little chuckle about is like internally you were like, damn, I built this deck for L3 and now I'm taking it out. And
I like that too.
He did that too. And Sharkey, I worked on this deck like maybe a month ago when we had a big weekend testing day, and I was like, yeah, L3 sucks. And I could never get it to feel worth it.
I had the same problem. I took it out. I used L3 one time and I made a note of it because it's like, hey, I got to work once.
Yeah, once, right? It's like somebody at Locals who plays the new Maz Kanata. It's the best card in the world.
Yeah.
When it works, which is not that often. But yeah, really interesting to see this sort of thing pop up. And to that point, right, like another aggro adjacent deck is really Chewbacca, right? And we saw, I think I have a list pulled up here, but I know one won a PQ. I'll just keep scrolling around until I find one. I don't think I have one actually. But Chewbacca is one that's been on my mind a lot in the same vein as Yularen, where he could just like push it on you. It doesn't need to be a pilot deck. It doesn't need to be a million actions Vader deck. It's just a pilot deck. And we did see Chewbacca do well this weekend, but I guess head to head, Kyle, do you think that Yularen is just straight up faster than Chewbacca?
Yeah, and it's kind of like we saw in the old Sabine days. I have action cheating, you don't, right? So I think when we would play Sabine mirrors back in the day, it was who has Rebel Assault, And with Yularen, I have Rebel Assault always. And so I've found that action cheating really, really matters, and it usually helps you win a race against other aggro decks.
Yeah.
And the weird part for the Chewbacca matchup specifically is that Chewbacca becomes the control, I believe, because he's got to use his
he's got to use his
ability to start taking units off the board.
So this is the big event in Spain. Apologies on not having the data filter, but it's weird. It's a weird time in the season where Swoobase probably didn't think that this community event was going to be the biggest of the weekend and didn't include it that way. But we see a lot of the similarities here, except for Lando being really well represented here. Both in the total representation and in the top 8. The champion of this event was Luke Skywalker. We talked about that list a couple minutes ago. But Kyle, do you think that this data set here with Lando being the most X to make up the top 8 is more representative or less representative compared to the PQ data at large?
Well, getting back on predictions, I think it's more representative where we're headed. Alex mentioned maybe people just can't build Lando yet or haven't been practicing it because we hadn't really discovered it in our early online testing. I think it's becoming the darling. It's going to continue to rise. And I think next week we'll be talking a lot more about Lando's representation and conversion rates. Lando's just very good into kind of everything, right? We haven't found it's like, oh, that's the terrible matchup yet. So, and usually that type of deck does well.
Yeah.
I would contend we do have a data sample that suggests what Lando might be weak to, but I've already hammered the point home a few times about what's been beating up a lot of the main meta decks. So Boba Lake Country is also very good into Lando according to the data. Just something to think about, that if Lando rises, it might be yet another reason we see more Boba Lake Country around.
And it looks like at this event, I don't know if we saw any Boba, Sharkey. We saw one... we saw a lot of Boba. Let's see what Boba Lake Country. Okay, so we saw it was the most represented out of the Bobas, and into Lando, it was 1-1. So really nothing that we could really.
The PQ data has Lando 0-4 against Boba Lake Country.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot, but it is another trend. Like if the trends that are lining up with this continue, I expect to see a lot more Boba around.
Yeah, I could see that. Alex, when you look at this metadata, anything that stands out to you as being more predictive or less predictive than the PQ stuff we talked about?
I don't really think so. Nothing super jumps out to me, to be honest. I think, I think we're going to see more trends. I mean, it's hard. We're trying to extrapolate data off of classic data analysis, right? We have this 2 data points. We're trying to extrapolate off of that. So it's a little bit tricky, but I think, I actually do think Lando is the best deck right now. I mean, Luke as pilot is second, and whatever's after that, I'm not fully sure, but maybe probably Boba. And I'm curious if we're going to see this kind of dance between these decks that we've seen in the past, where when we don't have a dominant deck. I think we've had a couple metas now in the game where we haven't had a singular dominant deck, right? And it's been pretty cool to have that. Like, you don't have a Django or a bannable deck at this point where it's pretty wide open. And I think this game is so much player skill expression that you can see that it often comes down to the pilot over the deck itself, like I said before. So I'm just excited to get more data these coming weeks myself. So
yeah, when you look at
makes a straight line to the moon.
When you look at the spread here, there's 3 decks in this top 8 that can play aggressive negotiations and 3 that just don't, right? People were really all up in arms about that being a preset bannable thing, similar to the force throw conversation stuff. Really doesn't seem to be playing that much of a massive force in the meta right now. Obviously, Luke can run it. Sometimes it's for a hit for 5, right? I think the big conversation around that is no one wants to get hit for 17 or something like that. I run it in my Boba Yellow lists. I'll have to try Boba Lake Country out as well to see how that feels. But when I'm swinging in those games, it's not like a giant hit for 7. It's just a few. And I do like the balance here. And
that's actually an interesting point, though, because a lot of the aggressive negotiations decks in the early part of where this set started were all red-blue. And I don't see a single red-blue included in this top 8, and I don't know how many in the top decks that weren't Jin. So it's interesting that the aggressive negotiations playable decks don't seem to be paired with blue anymore.
Yeah.
Well, this being the biggest event, the first one I called out there was that Lando was did better here and was more represented here than we saw in the minority PQ representation. I'm also going to hammer again on Jin. Jin, I believe, was tied. There were the top 3 decks were all tied for representation in most played, except for Jin was the only one that had no conversions and fell all the way down to 16th, I think.
Yeah.
So it had a fall off the shelf, right? Which is more of kind of what we were predicting previously, as opposed to kind of what we saw in the lesser PQ data.
Another big week for our buddy Unknown as well.
I think, now taking a second to think about it more, I think actually what I'm noticing is in both this event and in other data we're looking at was the lack of Talzin. I think Talzin, there's a lot of big Talzin, play right now in both red and yellow. I think they're both decks are really good, but I do question, if it's well positioned right now in the meta. Yeah. I'm speaking as a non-Talzin player, so if any of y'all have played Talzin, do let me know. But
only 2 made top 8 this week in the PQ data, which is and one of them isn't yellow;
green.
It's green.
We'll talk about here in a second. Kyle, we played a lot of Talzin this set. I played a lot of red last set. We both played some yellow last set too. There's this new school of thought with the red, right? I guess earlier on in the set, it was like, hey, red's like more of the control style leader now, right? We're playing more events, condemn, etc. Now it seems like there's a lot of upgrades going on in red. Battle Fury, constructed lightsaber, getting you like out of the range of topple and stuff potentially, like just really pushing on the ground and providing a huge threat with your leader. Alex mentioned retaliation earlier. We've been testing that in a lot of things as well this past week because of that sort of change. But these leaders are still kind of positioned poorly, similarly to Obi-Wan in a lot of ways, right? Like they struggle into a lot of the same sorts of archetypes.
Yeah, the bus driver in the meta right now is strong pilot decks. We keep talking about Boba Luke, right? Talzin's down, challenge has been being the least capable of answering that problem, right? We talked about Obi, you can go the restore route. There's things you can do. I'm not restoring in Talzin, right? I'm just getting raced and losing the race. And so yellow specifically dominates the ground game. I think that's why we've started to see experimentation saying, hey, yellow, I'm going to lose the race and I'm going to dominate the ground, but that's not where they are. Red, I have more interaction into space. I could do things like no disintegrations. I have a few more answers, but turns out I'm probably still losing the race. So maybe as we talk about this green, we've got some more answers there. But Talzin is a very, very good deck. And if we go into a ground combat meta, Talzin's going to start to crush people. The problem is that we're playing in space right now and Talzin's getting left behind.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's dive into Talzin. Let's dive into that Talzin green, man. Top 4 in the city in Spain that I'm not going to disrespect by attempting to pronounce it. We have Talzin Green Force here. A deck that's been like popping up a little bit here and there, like around world. People are like, hey, is this a real thing? Like, should it be played? The answer was no at that time. Is the answer yes now, Shark?
Well, it's an interesting looking Talzin deck, and I say that because it doesn't look like a Talzin deck that much to me. It's got enough to go back to our point earlier about the ground fight. There's a lot of interaction going across the arena between Whirlwind of Power, Talzin's Assassin, Nothing Left to Fear, and Craving Power. Between all of those, you're running 12 cards that do that. And the card that actually is jumping out at me the most is this Timely Reinforcements that makes a bunch of Sentinels, right?
Main deck.
So, yeah, it's main deck, which is, I mean, if that's the entire reason for running Talzin Green, I think it's an interesting idea at the very least. I haven't tried this one, but it almost looks like it's trying to do the same thing like I was trying to do with Boba the other day, or like, one of the other blue-green villains that are mostly ground-based but can shoot things out of the sky.
Mm-hmm. Alex, no Anakin, no Vader, no big ships, just little ships with the X-Wings. Not really what you would expect from blue-green villain.
Yeah, that was the first thing I saw when I looked at the list, was the where it topped out is that it's the 6-cost 8th brother. But actually one thing I'm noticing too, and I think this is as a non-Talzin player looking from the outside in, it seems like the biggest weakness of the deck construction is just the curve, especially the 3 drops, right? Both the red and yellow Talzin and green, I think is lacking strong force 3 drops. So I'm curious to see, we're seeing the evolution into these. I think these Talzin players are realizing they can get away with just playing a non-force great 3-drop because they have their Force 2-drops. So in red, my teammate Micah started running 000. Is a 4/4 that can swing for 5, and then here we're seeing the lats. I love the lats, because much different format, but in my limited Aura green deck on Friday, lats was the MVP, and I can see how Aura does the plus 1 extra damage with the her ability. Talzin is all the same way. You get her force from your turn 1 unit, play lats, deal 3 damage, and then finish something off with Talzin's ability. So I really like that include. That card is awesome. I almost want to include it in Obi-Wan, but just the lack of 4 health is the reason not to. But that's pretty cool to see that card, because that card is, I think we're going to see a lot of that in blue-green moving forward.
So similar to the Boba Fett question, Kyle, with Lake Country, with yellow, with blue, even that we've been messing with, even if it's control or not control, Talzin's just that good, man. You know, if it's red, if it's yellow, if it's green, doesn't really even matter.
Yeah, but I feel like this deck probably just suffers the same problem that we just talked about as both red and yellow do. I don't know that this one card addition is enough to solve the space problem. My gut would say I want to see the matchup spread. I mean, a Talzin can have a good day, run into a bunch of ground decks and just dominate, right? I wonder what this Talzin faced. I mean, congratulations for getting as far as you can, but I don't see it answering the questions or solving the current challenges that Talzin has had into the meta leaders.
Yeah, if anything, it might even just be better versus on the ground, right? Like
the matchup spread was it beat a Luke and it beat a Boba, and it drew into Poe, it drew into Boba, so it dodged 2 of its
hey man, you
other pilot
draw?
matchups.
Hey man, you know, it's a 50-50 matchup, you know,
and it lost ultimately to a Boba Fett.
So I think again, Boba Fett. A problem was the Boba Fett Lake Country or yellow, Sharkey?
It beat Lake Country. It lost to blue.
Yeah, so Boba Blue is one that I've been messing with. I know a couple other players are as well. It just the question that I have to ask myself when building these lists is just like, is Boba just that good where it doesn't matter what colors he's playing? It's just like a few things for flavor here and there, and then at the end of the day, like, does Lake Country just get a bigger advantage with 4 extra HP? I mean, up to this point, I've been resistant to think that is right, but we'll see how the data develops over the next little bit. Let's jump into another list here. This was from the large event, the Empire Games. This was Piet Blue. Kyle, I believe you added this to the list.
Yeah, the real question I just wanted to ask about here is, you know, we've lost Overwhelming Barrage, right? Mm-hmm. And that was a meta definer in many ways. And one card that is still sticking around that we wanted to ask the question is, what is the Turbo Laser Salvo deck? And that's what this deck is, right? You know, if you're able to cheat out and get to a big ship quick, you could decimate some of these ground decks, like an Obi-Wan, that sort of thing, right? If I get a big ship out and just Turbo Laser Salvo down the ground, you know, we can get a win right away. But you can always hit the other arena as well, too, I suppose. So, you know, we always knew Piet was potentially going to be good. Any leader that can cheat resources, there's always going to be a place for that leader, and we got a way to find it. So I like the thought process here. I like the experimentation of, hey, I've got a leader that cheats resources, and I've got a broken card potentially in Turbo Laser Salvo. Let's try to make that deck work. And so this is one that I haven't played myself, but I picked it out because I liked the concept. I liked the thought process here, and I want to try to build it myself and see if I can do some tweaking and playing around and see where we get.
I mean, a Cantwell Cruiser on 5 is going to be good no matter how you play it.
Seems good, right? Interdictor too, don't say it. But I think one of the things that I like about this, and just shout out to Alex and Blue Milk Gaming in their Patreon tournament event last week. I played a Piet Blue. We had a bunch of great matches versus my Boba Yellow deck. I ended up winning, but great matches. But in contrary to me just saying that I ended up winning as Boba, this just looks like it would really be a problem for a lot of space decks to deal with, right? Like, you just got some big honking spaceships, man. You got, and in the side, you have the new IG listener card, the 5/6 Sentinel for 6 that could come out on 5, right? It's really, really strong stuff. I mean, another thing that might be worth messing around with here, Sharky, is that Nothing Left to Fear, similarly to that Boba deck that you built a few weeks ago, that just had 3 Craving Power, 3 Nothing Left to Fear, like really annoying to deal with. The only difference with this deck is you got big honking spaceships to buff with that, right?
The spaceships feel no fear.
Yeah. Another thing here real quick before we move on is that these colors can play upgrade hate, or no upgrade hate, excuse me, but they have regular removal, and then they have credit hate too. They could play Tamarin. He has 1 Convex here, so interesting list. I might mess with it as well. Very, very fun stuff overall. Next list.
I like that he uses ground units in general to play the control part. It's not just delete that unit, it's get in the way.
So why don't you just keep on talking here, because this is a list that you
go.
added. Here we have Third Sister Data Vault, number 5 at the PQ in Italy there by Silver IK. Mostly red here, a couple green cards coming in, but always interesting when you can see a Third Sister do this well.
So one of the things that Third Sister is like, since they released Third Sister, I've been trying to see if I can find something to make her work. And it's interesting because her ability makes it so you're probably going to get to use whatever you play. And there's lots of ways to try to abuse that. And especially now that there's a lot less delete that unit removal around, I feel like it's in a better spot. And it's cool to see this one succeed, I guess, in some ways. Because it was, if you look at the matchup spread, it was undefeated going into the last round of Swiss and drew with the Alarn, who ended up winning this tournament. Lost in the first round of the top 8, but still getting there with an undefeated record is pretty good. And it's just playing all the good stuff from red, green, and villainy here. So you've got things like 000, you got Cyril, you've got even some of the smaller, lower health units will survive a bit because of the hidden ability to just play them and start slamming them into things. Having played against a couple similar, not this one, but a couple similar Third Sisters before, sometimes you just can't stop them from doing damage to your base. And when they have 33 and it's a race like that, you're kind of behind.
Yeah, it's a little trend so far today, right? Whether it's Lake Country, Data Vault, or otherwise, it's a lot of health good, little health bad, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I actually played against this list the other night. Same pilot, really was a fun set of good games. But hey, we'll see if it becomes a meta contender. I think this is the type of list similarly to like that Phasma list that popped up last set that people are just gonna get excited to see. You're gonna see like a post on Reddit about this. Oh my god, I'm so happy it happened, and I'm happy too. It's always good to get some creativity coming in there. Let's go on to our next one here, which is a Vader splash base. This is at that this is at the large 80-person event in Spain. Kyle, you added this. We haven't seen much Vader pilot splash coming in yet. Unity of purpose without the aspect penalty. Go wide, swing a bunch of ties in for a lot, X-Wing ties in for a lot of damage, and still has the plot stuff. But what stood out to you here most?
Yeah, so this was the first version of Vader Pilot I built. I had the same thought with Unity of Purpose, and frankly, I was disappointed in Unity of Purpose. What stuck out to me here is this blue ship. Yeah. I had to read it again. I was like, what does that do? Yeah, I was like, well, no, I don't think it's shield. No, it's the one that distributes experience tokens. But after I read it, I realized, okay, here's what you do, right? You play this, you flip Vader onto it, and then it says when you complete an attack, you can move and upgrade, which means Vader, right? So you flip Vader onto it, you hit with Vader, you then move to Vader to another ship, and then you hit with Vader on that ship again. That's a crazy amount of damage. Yeah. I think that's the really cool thing here. I mean, the Unity of Purpose, if it works, it works. I feel like if I built this deck, I might weed that out eventually. I think the splash base is this blue ship because you can get that disgusting double Vader hit.
Oh, so this is still doing the same thing that the
Survivor's
Gauntlet? Yeah, Survivor's Gauntlet from forever ago was doing. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That never worked, like ever. So I wonder if
actually,
this has changed.
I lost that in a side event at Galactics. So
okay, it happened one time. It happened one time.
I think it might work better in the current environment.
Yeah. So I thought this was that like 4 shielded ship or 2 shielded ship that you play, but that it didn't even occur to me.
That's the Cloak Star Viper.
Yeah, but really cool. And we're also seeing more of this contracted jump master coming up, whether it's in Talzin, Vader, or otherwise. I think seeing a lot of increase in play coming up here.
Yeah. It was just a cool thought. That's why I picked this one out. Yeah. As soon as I saw that blue ship, I had to read it. I had to go look it up. And I was like, oh, smart, right? And so I wanted to point it out because good job.
Yeah,
I think Space Sentinels in general on the contracted jump master point. Space Sentinels in general are going to start showing up a lot.
Totally. So here's a Lando 27. We're going to talk about 2 Lando lists really quick. I've been playing Lando Heroism, like mostly the McClunky list with some changes. I know that there are a lot of talk about, just calling Vigilance and having a bigger removal package. So let's talk about that for a little bit as we dive into these lists. So this list right here is splashing Han as well as Rey, not splashing Zeb, not going for that double Spectre bomb. Also has Hona in the side. Really, really robust removal package here, right? You have the Rhydoniums, you have Hyperspace main, you have Lost and Forgotten main. In exchange for that, though, in exchange for all of that extra stuff, excuse me, Zeb is there too. In exchange for all of that, you lose Mandalorian and Qui-Gon. So that's been like the conversation that I think has been tough for me to think about, is that like, hey, for this, you get a really varied package here. You get some good splash targets. You get good removal. Same thing with Vigilance. You get good removal, but you lose some of that consistency. So I guess real quick, let's just lay out the conversation. One, is it super important to have 100% hit rate or really close to 100% hit rate on your Lando call? And then two, what do we think the best combination is here? So Sharkey, let's start with you. I know that you've been on the camp of not needing 100% hit rate. Convince me why.
So I will preface a few things. I am of the camp of not 100% hit rate. I don't know that I'd go as low as this hit rate would. But I think it's okay to have a few cards that are outside of your normal gambling thing because the risk is worth it, and usually the cards are good enough to make up for it. I don't think 100% is necessarily required because a lot of times you're using that. The way you play this thing is that you're playing it in ways that you can afford to miss one. Now, I say that and you're going to miss one and lose a game because of it, but like it's generally as an extra thing to do on the end of a turn sometimes, or like you're filling in a curve in some ways. And so to have one or two, or I would say maybe 5 cards off is fine. This one seems to be all over the place.
So 5 cards off is 90% hit rate, right? Just so
right.
Everyone's clear with the math.
I would take a 90% hit rate and be happy with that. I'd probably maybe not go any lower than that. I say that now and I'll find a deck to do it. But like, I think that's okay. And I think especially if your off cards are things like Liberty that are that strong, I think it's okay. Now, the argument then becomes, well, why not just play the one that plays Liberty and doesn't have to worry about it?
Which we'll argue about here in a second. Right?
Absolutely valid argument.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're going to play off, the reason to do so would be something as strong as Liberty or in that class.
So Kyle counted up. This one's 4 off. So that is what, 92% chance.
Liberty and Rey.
Yeah.
Right. Assuming you're doing blue.
Yeah, you have to be calling blue here because of all of the removal stuff you have for sure, right? Because you have Hondo too. So yeah, this is definitely blue, just 100%. But Alex, I heard you saying I don't know about that. So what's your take on it? What's the percentage you're looking for?
I don't know exactly, but I'll just say it. Sharky, instead of thinking of it as 90% hit rate, think of it as 10% chance to lose the game. Are you okay with a 10% chance to lose the game as a non-Lando player? I mean, I haven't picked up Lando yet. I will try it out, but personally, I would not be okay with 10% chance to lose the game. I don't know if I like Rey here enough to warrant a possible miss just for the one Rey. I mean, that said, I'm actually putting Rey in my Obi list to try out on my sideboard this week, but maybe she actually is just insane right now. And that's worth it. But Liberty, I think, is hands down unquestionably worth the miss.
Sure.
But those games where you hit that, and you miss. Not only do you miss, you also lose one of your best cards. It's gonna feel real bad. So personally, I think as close to 0% miss rate is preferred. And yeah, I think it's an interesting topic, though. I think it's an interesting discussion because there's not one right answer here, right? It is subjective. So
yeah. I like to look at it from the opponent's perspective. If I'm your opponent, what do I want you to be doing? And I want you to be playing misses, right? I love it when you flip it over and you miss and then I win the game, right? So if your opponent wants it to be true, then I probably don't want to be doing it.
Yeah,
I mean, counterpoint, your opponent doesn't want you playing Liberty, so like if you don't want to play Liberty, that's fine by me.
Well, let's save the Liberty conversation for a different part of it, because we all agree Liberty good, right? But I think that the topic that you mentioned, Alex, 10% chance to lose the game, that's the way the McClunky guys phrased it in their deck tech video, was Pasquale, Phil, and Tyler talking about it, and that really stuck with me in a lot of ways just to think about it. Like, for instance, I've been playing Heroism. if I'm going to bring in some misses, it's likely for some removal, right? That's like what my dilemma would be. That's what I would be thinking of. Is it worth that? I don't know. I think there is a lot of comfort in knowing that it's not a risk. I'll tell you, like in games 2 and 3, my calculus of like, do I need a credit and protecting my credit are a lot tighter than they are in game 1, right? Because I know I could just make another one. I was practicing some mirrors earlier today with a teammate. He was playing a list that had I think 6 or 7 misses, right? He was calling heroism, but he was playing like nimble prowess and a couple other things. Like, so I typically you want to mill each other in that matchup, right? And I didn't feel confident, right? I was like, I'd rather mill myself in this situation because I really want to get a credit, right? So that's a topic that I think is going to be ongoing here. I think Alex, Kyle, myself are on as low as we can. Sharkey sounds like he has a little bit higher of a tolerance. Let us know in the comments where you're at.
To be fair, I still think as low as you can is the right way to look at it.
So
I just don't think it has to be 100%.
So what's the number then? Is it 98? Is it 96? Like what's your target?
I'm personally comfortable going down to 90, but that doesn't mean everybody is, right? But that's still, you want to minimize it. I'm not going to 85. I'm not even going to 89.
Oh, no,
that's too far for me, right? Like everyone has the threshold, right?
Let's keep
but
it
like,
above 90 for
that's
sure.
what I mean. Like everyone has the threshold. It's not like, you want it to be minimal, but what is minimal to you and what you're comfortable with doing, and make sure that you have both your mindset and your deck constructed in such a way as to play the way that you are expecting. You want this to play as you expect the deck to play.
Yeah.
What's gonna lose you a game is when something happens, you're like, oh shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. I don't have a prepared plan for this. Now we're done.
I will say, I personally really enjoy what Lando's brought to the game, just in terms of like deck construction possibilities. I think it's just really cool to have this kind of leader that opens up so many options as a deck builder. Because I'm someone who I'm working on being a better deck builder, and so it's pretty cool to have these opportunities and these interesting quandaries of like how many misses you run. I think it's a bigger example than we had in the past. There's like the For a Cause, I believe in. Kind of question of like with Sabine, how many misses you run in Sabine? Like Darksaber was usually worth it when that was a good card, before it kind of got adjusted, the meta adjusted. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how the Landos evolve, and also, as I think people called it the Han 1 replacement, in terms of just being like the overall like solid action chain deck. Playing against it doesn't feel as bad, because playing as Han 1 when they just had that the 5, 6, 7 early on, always felt really bad. You just lose that game from that, like, in the turn 1/3 drop. Like Lando feels a lot more of a balanced Han 1 in my opinion, and so I actually enjoy playing it with it and against it, which I think is really good for the game to have those kind of decks, right? We don't want to have these like miserable mill decks that other games had, like Star Wars Destiny, where it's just like only the player playing the deck was having a good time and your opponent was not having a good time. So speaking as that said, speaking as someone plays Obi-Wan, I don't think Obi-Wan's a very fun deck to play against all the Sentinels and stuff. So I just think Land's a really cool deck. I'm excited to play it a little bit more myself and give it a spin.
So here is the McClunky list from last week. I've been testing very similar. Like I'm like a few cards off right now, just experimenting with a few different things. So this is like the standard vanilla heroism list, right? We just compared it to the splash list. You don't get the sexy Han or Zeb, and Han has a really interesting line. We didn't talk about it with that list enough probably, but you could play that, get a credit, boom, boom, bang, right? You could do Kanan on the next turn with the credit, bounce something, and then you just have a Han unit growing. Here, we don't have the removal suite, right? But we have really big units. We have Qui-Gon, we have Mando, we have Liberty. Really, really just chunky top end. And then on top of that, there's another one that's been going around here that is the 35, which I think we had one pop up this weekend. Here we go. Here's the 35, which has typically been calling cunning, but it looks like this one's a little bit mixed. There's a lot of heroism here. He's not running the Master Codebreaker like we saw last week in New Jersey. We're trying to proc double Anakin with arrest, only one arrest to do it. We're playing Never Tell Me the Odds.
There's no glories.
No glories too. I love this deck. Is crazy. Like what the hell is going on here?
What is this one trying to call?
I have no idea. We'll have to ask Jacob.
You're calling the opponent's cards is what it looks like. You're playing the other guy. You just milled their deck.
Yeah, I mean you're probably calling blue, but I'm not sure.
Do you just not use the ability, like, except for the one time before the flip turn, possibly?
Yeah,
maybe.
but you get to see a lot of different flexibility here. So we'll continue this Lando conversation quite a bit going into next week. I have a PQ coming up this weekend that a lot of teammates and friends are going to as well. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of good follow-up for you guys after that. Alex, you were at Adepticon over the weekend, a little bit of a smaller field than we were hoping for, but just overall, I'll pull up the results here. What was like your main takeaway from the event? Like, I know we had limited, we could chat about that overall, but did you feel like a little brother in the miniature competition, or did they roll out the red carpet a little bit?
We were definitely the side event. I was actually shocked. I thought Thursday would be like maybe the least represented. We'll see the attendance ramp up, with Saturday being the most, considering it was the weekend and people would drive up from Chicago and the surrounding area. But no, we had the most players on Thursday, and then it dropped off pretty drastically. And that's just a consequence of being the side event. Like, players who maybe didn't made their day 2 on Saturday dropped from the Saturday event to play their Legion tournament or Warhammer, whatever it was. But for me, it was kind of a dress rehearsal for PQs, honestly. And I had to hang out with some of my friends and locals and have a great time playing Star Wars. Win the sweet mat. I got to show it off, right?
Yeah, please do.
Absolutely.
The Vader Fear and Devon mat here. And yeah, it's insane pricing for like a showdown level kind of tournament. A lot of new players, but I had a great time meeting a lot of these newer players and welcoming them to this game. I think it's one of my roles, being an ambassador, right? Like, my round 1 opponent, shout out to Ethan. I'm kind of teaching him a little bit how to play against me while we're playing, and I had a great time playing with him and meeting him. Before the premiere event, got to help him kind of tweak his deck a little bit from the Spotlight deck. And yeah, just amazing couple days of SWU, and got to, again, bring Obi-Wan out off of Carabas for the first time, and got to get some good reps with it. Play against some solid players. You know, that said, there were a lot of solid players there, you know, including my teammates, myself and Carlos, and other from Late Night Gaming. So overall, is a great, like I said, I think dress rehearsal is the way I put it, to repeat that kind of statement. For myself, as I look forward to the PQ in Springfield next weekend for premiere. So yeah, I think that's the main thing I would add about that. And then limited too. That first time playing limited outside pre-release. We don't really go too in depth into that. We'll probably maybe y'all will cover that in a future pod as we get into limited PQs. But limited, this set is a blast. I'll leave it at that.
100%.
So,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
And we have all our pre-release videos out and stuff to get there. But always good to see an event get out there, even if it's 20 people, 25 people, 40 people, whatever. And any SWU is better than no SWU in my book, and I'll always die on that hill. Our friends over at Late Night, and as well on your channel, Blue Milk Gaming, you streamed it as well. So good stuff all around. And like I know Sharkey and Kyle did some commentary. I was doing some human stuff and testing stuff over the week. I commentated too much last week. I needed to I just saw the dishes in my sink pile up, and I needed to prioritize a little bit better, because I'm going away next weekend to Vegas, right? So with that being said, we have the European PQs in the books. We have our first week of PQs coming up. I'm going, Jeff from the Bothan Network, Curtis from the New Eclipse, and then a couple of our teammates, Jerry, Nick, and some others are going as well. So going to be a stacked event. I was hoping it'd be easy street, go to Vegas,
trying to sneak in there,
do some blackjack, have some dinner, get a PQ in. We'll see. Now I got to work for it. But heading in, we've talked about it. We've hit on some different decks. Real quick, let's go through and just predict what we think the best decks are, what we think the most played decks are. Sharkey, you kind of stuck your claim a little bit earlier with the Boba Lake Country prediction. So why don't you kick us off with your top stuff?
Let's see. I think there will be I'm going to combine the Boba decks. I think Boba will be one of the top 3 represented leaders. I don't know which yellow or Lake Country will be more represented. I lean Lake
it's a
Country,
bold call, bro. It's a bold call. Right?
Weird. Well, hey, we're talking about most played decks. I think Luke, and I think they're going to start sliding over to Vel again from the red-blue heroism side. I could see that starting to become a thing. Lando, while I do think Lando will be there, I don't think he's quite as easy to pick up as some of the other ones. So if you're not a deck builder, I expect to see those 3 show up, and it's tough to call over. I mean, Lando's another good option. So those are my expected top 3.5.
Yeah, and Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, I think Lando shows itself as the meta leader, right? We talked before, I don't think we have a dominant meta deck, but I think Lando starts to flex its muscles as I am kind of the leader. I am the deck to beat, and that we'll see that meta share rise. I'll go out on a little limb and say we're going to see Boba go down. I'm not as excited about it as Sharkey is. I've loved to hate on it over the past year or so as well. So I'll stick my flag there and
I
continue
will note,
to do
I'm
so.
not excited about it. I just think it's going to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as my one prediction, I think we're going to see a pretty dramatic increase in overall play rate and conversion rate for Lando Blue specifically.
Okay, Alex.
That was what I was going to say about Lando, because I said earlier, I think the reason it wasn't played more was just the lack of cards. More time has passed. More people have more time to get the cards. So I agree with Kyle on that. I think, it's Lando, Luke, and Boba, I think are the big three in the clubhouse, with everyone else trying to catch up to them. And my boy Obi-Wan, we're going to hang on there. We'll see how it goes. But I'm just excited to see. Honestly, I'm more excited to see what we don't know about yet. Like, are we going to see? I ran into a client red deck that was kind of spicy the other day against a buddy of mine, or is it going to be? Who knows? That's what I love about this game, is that we don't know yet. My prediction is that I don't know what I don't know, right? That we're just doing something just totally out of left field. I think there's be something that maybe not is a one-off, but maybe we haven't figured out yet. That's something that might emerge. I think we've seen that in the past too, right? Like, I'm trying to think what the deck was last minute that kind of came up late, but I'm blanking off the top of my head.
I think it would be Yoda probably, right? With like Anakin coming out of the gate and then Yoda coming in a little bit after, or what? Kyle, what would you say?
Yeah. The one that dominated right at the end was the Han 1 Tarkin Town. We had a lot of Han 1, but it wasn't Tarkin Town. Han 1 Tarkin Town showed up and then started to crush right before rotation. I feel like that was the late comer.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I think on my end, I would really mimic what Alex's predictions are, but the third place for me, I think that Vel is going to be fighting in there as well. I think we're going to see Vel be on that 4 area. I think people say, how do I race space decks? Can I play upgrade hate and can I play credit hate? And I think that's gonna kind of gently lead some people away from Jin towards Vel and otherwise. And to your point, I think Lando is a tough deck to pick up. I think it takes a lot of reps, and I've been playing this past week since the McClunky event last weekend, and I could speak firsthand to that. So I think Boba, Luke, and Lando would be my top 3 prediction. But I think Vel, if Vel was number 1, I wouldn't be shocked in terms of like how successful she was. So we'll see how that shapes up. A lot of PQs, a lot of coverage. I'm sure we're going to get some streams. I'm not sure who's streaming when. We'll post about it on YouTube or in our Discord, which you're welcome to join. So a lot coming up here on the channel. We're going to recap hopefully a good week of PQs coming up here. We have midday matchup coming. Kyle, anything special planned?
Well, I keep talking about this Yularen deck. My showcase showed up, so I'm definitely playing Yularen.
There it
I
is.
don't know what the Nerd Slayer's playing yet. We'll figure it out. Give me a suggestion if you got one.
Are you finally going to be favored into a match?
Yeah. Let's not push that narrative because we all know it's not true. Let's get something real fast so you can play 6 games. Let's swap it back.
Hey, client versus Larn, the old men just duking it out.
Oh yeah, exactly what we want to see. A bunch of old men fighting, so that's good. Alex, you're streaming every day, playing games, having fun. You check that out over at Blue Milk Gaming. And what else you got going on?
Yeah, we have our free Discord that has a free online tournament every Sunday night happening actually right now as we're recording this. There's 16 players playing right now, and if you're looking for more reps, come join us and hang out. And I guess I stream on lunchtime Monday through Friday, I can't get enough of this game. Y'all can't tell. So excited to be here. Had a great time chatting with y'all. So that's the main things we got going on at Blue Milk Gaming.
100%. And one of the good things about us is like we're getting this out to you on like Monday, Sunday, usually, sometimes Tuesday if we're lazy. There's an F1 podcast that their slogan is, we might not be right, we might be wrong, but we're first. And that's what we're kind of doing. And then what we're going to happen after that is that Alex kind of tests those theories. He's out there playing these new things, testing some off meta stuff, and then the core Obi or whatever deck he's really grinding. So recommend that. And I played in the online local a couple times, as well as the Patreon tournament. So recommend that. Go check it out. Go have a good time. And then stay tuned here for more coverage of this A Lawless Time meta. A lot coming up. I'm excited. New leaders, new things. And this tournament we're going to in Vegas, Kyle, I shouldn't tell you because you're watching my dog and I want good supervision, but the winner gets a case of carbonite.
Holy moly.
All right.
He just bought his plane ticket.
I'm
Right
watching
as you
Carl.
said that.
Yeah, you're watching. You're breaking up.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a lot of good stuff going on here outside the ending of this podcast. So until next time, guys, thanks for Alex for joining us. For Kyle and Sharkey, I'm Jordan. Stay tuned, stick with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.